this week, the awesome Ben is going to pick 2 Blood Bowl teams that are going to be sent to one of you lot as a winner, okay? What you have to do this week is you have to post a comment below, make sure you're a subscriber, hit like, and if you can, because it is a massive help, please do share the show with your friends and your loved ones on your old social media or whatever it is that you do use these days. Don't just comment yet, because your comment is actually going to be a vote. Because this week, we're going to vote for the fleshy tones on Jerry's Hidden Dragon. Hi guys, weekend starts now. Welcome to the Weekender, your weekly guide to all of the awesomeness that is tabletop gaming. Right, couple of quick announcements first to make. Number one, no Weekender next weekend because we're actually going to be live streaming over the weekend for UK Games Expo Virtual. So the whole Virtually Expo thing is going to be live across on tabletop.com, plus at ukgamesexpo.co.uk, and on Twitch. A word on Twitch, we have now renamed our Twitch channel from Beasts of War to OnTableTop Live. So if you fancy subscribing to our live stuff, go to twitch.tv/OnTableTop Live. While you're there, it's worth subscribing to twitch.tv/UK Games Expo as well to prepare yourself for next weekend's festivities, you might say.
Absolutely. And they're all one words, no spaces.
Yeah. In other updates, this week past, we have been seeing Infinity N4 week, the new rules launch from Corvus Belli. It is massive, and there's some beautiful battle reports in there. Like, I mean, stunningly beautiful 3D battle reports.
Yeah. If you want to get the lowdown on that, if you come on over to ontabletop.com, you'll find the logo in here. If you just click that, that'll take you to our Infinity Hub. And then you can see absolutely everything that's been coming out this week about N4.
Yeah, I mean, it is loads and loads of new info for an incredible game. So if Infinity is your cup of tea or could be your cup of tea, definitely go and check out that because it's superb.
There's also some really good stuff in there from the sort of smaller version of Infinity that they put together as well. So if you want to dive in, if you want to get involved in that side of things as well, you've got all that stuff there too. So that's all the stuff that was released earlier in the year, which you can go and check out as well. Loads of stuff in there. There we go. Warren's even got himself one to read.
Oh, you've got the rulebook.
And it's nice. And it's, just out of the wrapper. Oh, dudes. So this is Code 1. Code 1 is going to be my go-to for Infinity. So I am to absolutely getting stuck into this. And one of the beautiful things that Corvus Belli have done is they are supporting a 2-tier Infinity. So Code 1 is kind of your slightly more, it is more streamlined. It's more simple. It's perfect for those of us that maybe just don't have the time to invest ourselves and throw ourselves fully into N4, but they're going to support competitive play, ITS, all kinds of things. I'm sure their campaigns and everything will all support Code 1 level entry into all of that. So I am going to be throwing myself into Code 1 because Infinity N4, amazing, but this suits my my level of attention span and my level of time that I have at the moment. So yeah, so go check out N4 if you want something just a bit easier to slip into. Check out Code One as well. They're both fully supported. Really good stuff coming from Corvus Belli these days. Right, Jerry.
Hola.
Let's let some people win some prizes, right? So we're all doing teamwork this week. Ben is picking 2 Blood Bowl teams because we're going to be talking about Blood Bowl a bit later. So Ben's going to pick out 2 wonderful teams. One of you folk at home can win both those teams. And the way you're going to be able to win both those teams is Jerry is going to whip out his fleshy dragon, okay? And
Easy.
we're all going to have a look at it right now. And then we're going to vote for the direction that he takes it. Because Jerry managed to get his hands on one of the most beautiful dragons I have seen. And this is the dragon from...
It's invisible at the moment.
Pete's dragon.
Oh, that's just the base.
Okay, Jerry, take us through this Croissant Dragon, because it is just mighty. Absolutely mighty. The sculpt is beautiful.
There's a little project that you could pull up there because it would make more sense to me trying to spin this round in the shadow. But it's a nice resin bit of kit that Warren handed over and went, "You could paint that, couldn't you?" So it's very generous of you, Warren. Yes, I could paint that. So it's very Game of Thrones-esque.
Yeah.
We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and it's got a wyvern feel where the front limbs are actually the wings. And you've a couple of choices with crests and armor plates running along the back. So I've got it put together, which was very quick. I will say 2 very quick things about that. It has a very specific stance on this, where you've got the feet at the rear and then little tippy-tap bits at the front for the front claws.
Mm-hmm.
I glued it together with the feet and claws in place on this, and then had to go back and fill gaps. What I should have done was just glue it together flush, because join lines are really good.
Yeah.
And then I should have just heated the resin up and got it to move the millimeter or 2 that I needed to move the feet. So I give myself more work. If you are getting anything, just glue it together. Secondly, because the joins are so flush, you can get away with not gluing the wings on, which would have made doing the inside of the wings much easier. I just glued the whole thing together.
So this is what you're working on, but this isn't yours yet.
No, this is the one they have on their website.
Now, Jerry, don't glue him to the base.
No, I'm not going to.
Yeah, keep him sit,
because
because
go ahead and base away.
He's been designed that he could actually sit on the base, or if you could obviously just remove the pegs or whatever, but he can actually just sit as a piece.
No, yeah. You can just cut those bottom feety bits off if you don't want to.
Because when you're finished this bad boy, he might end up in my dungeon, Jerry.
Yeah, well, I assume that was hobby by proxy once again.
So it's one of those. It's one of those things. I'm still working, and I will be for some time, but I'm still working and documenting my dungeon display project. And I will be getting to a point in the next week or so where next week or two, what I'm planning on doing is actually taking in a bunch of miniatures and starting to do a test fit. So I have a layout now in place, but what I plan to do next is to actually take some minis in,
populate it,
fits,
and
then rework the layout to make sure that the key pieces can fit, and that dragon will be potentially part of that.
Yeah.
I think that could be amazing.
So I've gone with a very simple mottled leather look to the fleshy bits of the wings, or the insides, which was Anarchy Stencils, because it was like, there's an awful lot going on there, and there is some nice texture on the wings, where you can see ripples and creases and veins and that sort of thing going through. But I thought it just needed something else, and then I remembered the Anarchy Stencil, so I give that a go. I did make a kind of a boob on the far side, but that's because I'm still practicing with my airbrush. So there is the bottom right wing, there's a little patch where it didn't dry and it sort of pulled away, but I'm just going to turn that into some sort of blood splatter. You see where it's very white there, and then you've got the noticeable. I'm just going to make that blood.
This wing, when you're saying you use the stencil, did you pre-spray stuff with the stencil and then go over it again, or did you wash the entire wing and then use the stencil to spray something?
I used a mix of calligraphy ink and army painter wash, which makes it a very good way of doing leather.
That cast, Jerry. I'm just sitting here astounded by the quality of the cast, like the teeth and all the scales.
It's a thing of beauty. If I'd just gone ahead and glued it together, I wouldn't have had any filling to do on it at all. And cleanup was
so. What it is an easy thing to build, then, yeah.
Oh god, yeah. Oh, it's an absolute gift to put together compared to some other kits I've done over the years. Yeah, because the way they've made it, the fine details on things like the teeth are actually they're cast in an upper and lower jaw that then sit into the recess of the mouth. So any mold lines are hidden. There's no cleanup between the actual individual teeth themselves. So, yeah, I would say.
Do you know the other thing I quite like about it? He's not perched on top of anything.
No, he's crawling forward.
It works for me as a gaming piece because not sitting necessarily on top of a castle or whatever. Like, do you have it there in front of you, Jerry? Could you hold it up? I get a sense of the scale of it. To you,
if I have, so that's a Dragron, and then that's Richard the Lionheart. So it is.
So he's a big boy, but he's not
7 inches.
He's not overly big. Do you know what I mean? He's not
unmanageable.
Game with it. Yeah, you could game with it.
Oh yeah, easily. If you want him as a gaming piece, he'll definitely do the job.
Yeah,
I'm trying to be careful that I don't actually drop him because that would make me cry. So yeah, but I then get to the point where the leather and the wings is done, but now I've 2 sort of choices that I was toying with for how I'm actually going to paint the dragon scales.
And this is where people get to vote.
Yeah,
this is how you're going to enter this week's competition. Okay, what are the two options here, Jerry?
So that traffic light looking thing is actually a set of Gold's color shift paints. So
great.
So it's that's actually 4 different ones. Obviously, because it's just standing flat there, you can't really see. But the first one goes from gold, like a very light gold, to a very noticeable green. The other one's sort of more subtle, and then it goes through to the purple one at the end is actually copper when you flip it back and forth. So I was thinking about doing a design similar to the one they've done on their painted miniature, where you've got different layers of scales, have different colors on them.
Yes,
including stripes and that sort of thing, but use the color flips in place, so you get a like a classic D&D gold dragon. But will shimmer and shine, and then just keep the actual underbelly and the wings sort of leather.
No, so the process to do that, Jerry, is it normally goes down over a black gloss.
Yeah, it doesn't matter which one I pick, because the next step after this will be breaking out masking tape and masking fluid, and I'll be masking those wings off because I'll be airbrushing the base layers down for both anyway.
Yeah,
but it would be mask it off, black gloss, and then just start airbrushing on the color flips.
Yeah.
And then peel it all back. And I should end up with a very shiny dragon.
Get that metallic dragon kind of, Jerry.
I think it could be a lot of fun and different. It gives me a chance to play with the color flips and my airbrush more because I'm, apart from making mistakes on masking on the wings there, I'm getting right good at this.
Yeah.
Blowing air on stuff.
So the crocs then, or the alligators, whatever they are.
The alternative is, when I was looking at it, you've got 2 choice of crests for the back of it. There's like a very sticky up crest, and then there's a very low armored plate one, which is what I went for. And when I was looking at it and looking at the ridge lines, and there's like distinct thicker ridges of armored scales down the back, I got it was a very crocodile feel to it. And I started Googling and found Nile crocodiles, because you've got different colorations and patterns and stuff. And the idea would be to go for that patternation on it. Specifically, so you've got this sort of greenish yellow with then the blacks running in, but the first picture where you've got like a mass of them laying over each other, where they have this noticeable red
across the top,
just across the top of the heads, really. And it sort of fades out as it goes further down the back. So I don't know if that's a specific type of Nile crocodile, But I thought that could be really nice and more realistic than going for the flip paints.
Mm-hmm.
Although possibly slightly more work. Well, we'll see. So I'm umming and eyeing
So
over which it gets.
people's choice then, right? Put this out to their viewership. Your choices are Color Shift,
Golden
Or-
D&D-esque.
or Nile Crocodile.
Crocodile.
So one is fantastical and the other is just pure fantastic. But I'll let
Time
you
will
guys
tell.
decide which it is. Of you guys, what have you a preference? Which route would you go? I've got to say now, I thought, oh, it's going to be the flip paint. It's going to be the flip paint. But now having seen the Nile Crocodile one, I'm going, oh, I can't decide. I don't know which. I might vote for both.
I think you should do the flip paint, Jerry, because I think that'll be the scheme that doesn't sit with Warren's D&D display the most.
That'll teach you. Here's your hobby by proxy. It's painted in lemon yellow.
Yeah.
If you had a big cavern full of gold and stuff, great.
But
I
a big
do.
cavern full of gold.
I do have a big
It's got
cavern.
mounds of treasure for a horde that I can be
Oh,
crawling
this
over.
is the dragon. Could go in there.
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking of putting the dragon up around the village area.
No.
Ah.
You're down in there. We'll chain him in.
Getting a smoke on.
But you're going to have to get a little glitter ball going down in there.
That's going to be lit up anyway, yeah.
Ben, what would you pick? Which direction would you go?
I think I'd also go for the flip paints. I think that would be really cool. I like the idea of seeing it, because obviously it's been done as slightly more of an anatomically correct dragon, but I'd love to see it done in that slightly more fantastical D&D style. I think that would be really, really cool. And it has the kind of facial features of like a gold copper dragon as well, which is really neat. A little bit of the sort of black dragon in there as well with the horns and things, but I think the gold would look really awesome.
Do you know what? Now's as good a time as any to address the one or two grognards that are sitting there twitching because we keep calling it a dragon.
It is a wyvern, yeah.
But no, look, do you see the whole wyvern dragon thing? It's nonsense. The two have been interchangeable for hundreds of years.
It's a debate
There is
that should be
no
solely kept to the College of Heraldry.
Yeah, there is no true defining line. So to call the entire clave dragon, I think is perfectly fine. If you want to call it a wyvern, you call it whatever the wyvern you want. but the clave, I'm just referring to the entire species and subspecies as dragons, but we're well aware that there's wyverns and dragons and worms and everything else.
You could actually call the whole family drakes, I think you'll find.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, well, you're the drakes.
Not the singer. Yeah, there we go.
Get your votes below. Stop your twitching. You know what we're talking about. So get your votes in below. Whenever we pick a comment at random, you have to be a voter. If you don't vote, you don't win, and we pick again. Okay?
Please don't make me pick again.
So it will be a case of Color Shift or Nile. Nile Crocodile.
Just remind people that was from Coruscant Miniatures, was it?
Yes. So it's the Curacao Dragon. Look, it's one of the most beautiful concepted dragons out there. There's always the temptation when you're doing a dragon to go massive and overboard, like the Games Workshop Smaug. Yeah, it's a display piece, but gaming with it is completely impractical. What Coruscant set out to do here when they designed a dragon is they wanted that ferocity. They wanted a quality of cast that would just make your jaw drop. But ultimately, Coruscant makes stuff for you to play with. So they set out from the outset to say, well, how can we make this all levels of beautiful, but still very, very playable? And the other thing about it is watching Jerry work with it, it seems very paintable as well, Jerry.
Oh, yeah. If you're not a painter, if you do just want to go through washes and dry brushes and you're done, there's plenty of detail in there. You can get away with that without 2 issues.
Yeah.
There's really nice sculpt, really nice defined cast on it as well. So it should be a joy to paint up.
Yeah, I think that's the key there. All the scales and stuff are really well defined.
Yeah.
Because you can pick up a dragon from like the toy manufacturers and stuff, and they're big and they're epic looking, but the scales and things are not particularly well defined, and it makes it kind of hard to paint and do little washes and pin washes and all that sort of stuff, because there's not enough of detail for them to stick within in the creases and stuff.
No, it's a lovely bit of kit. And if you're a Game of Thrones fan, or if you're playing that, what's that, Song of Ice and Fire?
Who's that from? So this is where you get it as well. Coruscant then.
Yeah.
Oh, $139.99.
It is based very similar style to the TV series Game of Thrones Dragons. It has that feel and look that they have. Sort of
go back to that link. Yeah, go back to that link for me, Lloyd. And click some of those links there. Jerry, you said that there was options in here as well.
There's a frilly neck. Yeah, you could either have the frill crest on it, or that armored sort of low, as if you want to put a rider on top. So yeah, there's that crest.
Good pick.
So those were your two options. Then you could have I assume, male in heat look.
No, wait, no. The neck, yeah. So the neck option is very. Oh, that other neck option's lovely too, isn't it?
It is, but weirdly, when I'd seen their painted version, I'd only seen the one with the big frilly crest.
Yeah.
So I went, I'll do the armored one because that was different. And then afterwards, I see all of those.
Is that concept stuff?
Yeah, that's the actual render of the model that it's the sculpt.
I mean, the 100%.
So it's really translated across, didn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Massive. I mean, there's not a.
When you compare that,
I don't think you can see a dropped scale between the render and the cast. You know, it's all there.
Man, dear.
I kind of leaning towards the Nile paint job, though.
Do you know what, Jerry? I've changed my mind as well. I think the Nile paint job. The more I look at the leather on the wings and stuff like that, there, I'm thinking, well, that Nile paint job might be something spectacular on that.
I think your flip paint idea could be spectacular, or it could be spectacularly bad.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be bad.
Takes your chances on that one.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. You know, it's over to the community on this one. We'll tally up the votes come Monday or Tuesday of next week, and Jerry can get stuck in and do
a couple of weeks time.
Because I know,
and there'll be a vlog to go with it as well, so you'll be able to see sort of steps as I go through.
When it comes to making dragons amazing, okay, if anyone can, Jerry can. Right. From one indie, the Curacao, who is a spectacular indie. I'm going to be talking about Curacao again because I want to talk about them with my moderns. So some of these upcoming weeks, I'm going to show you some cool Curacao stuff because I got some of their 15 mil orcs as well. But the indie of the week is someone different this week. Mm-hmm. So Ben, enlighten us as to who this week's Indie of the Week is, please.
Well, there we go. Yeah, so the Indie of the Week this week is a mainstay of the community, of the sort of tabletop community, and that is Otherworld Miniatures, that I'm sure many of you will be familiar with. So these guys are effectively actually one of the premier or the premier producer of stuff for you to use in your old style D&D, new style D&D adventure, underground, questing, glorified, amazing, fantastical adventures. There we go. I got through that sentence properly. It's all good. Right, yeah. So they do a whole bunch of different things, and I've kind of broken it down into some different links that you can go and check out as well as we go through. But one of their sort of core elements is this one, which you can see here, which is the Dungeon Adventurers box sets. So what they do is they do a section of very classic D&D adventurers for you to use in your games. So they've got things like your wizards, your fighters, your clerics, and all the different kind of things. And they've done them not necessarily just as humans, but they've done things like dwarves and gnomes and elves and halflings, that kind of stuff. It's everything that you would have imagined from those early editions of Dungeons and Dragons has been kind of translated across into the range of characters. And as you can see, the actual models themselves are incredibly characterful. There's so much sort of like life and vim to them, which I think is really cool. And they have those kind of like quirky, odd proportions to their characters that you used to see in the old artwork as well, which I think is really nice. The half orcs, for example, are some of my favorites, which are really cool. So if you go back to that image we were just looking at there for a second, that one there. So that sort of half orc rogue with the sort of like fur armor and stuff is really awesome. And obviously, you know, you've got like the little tiny gnome halfling in that full plate armor clanking around in the bottom of a dungeon somewhere as well. It's very awesome indeed. But yeah.
I see exactly what you mean by the proportions. They do look like the proportions of the old artwork.
Yes, they've got like kind of like really old hammer, old school feel to them, which I think is really cool. And they do a set of female adventurers as well. So you've got a good mix of characters in there on all fronts when it comes to both the race and the sort of genders and everyone as well, which is really neat. So
that box just went on my shopping list.
Well, you see, when I was looking at this, I was thinking very specifically about your dungeon, and I was like, how cool would all these characters look in Warren's dungeon, basically?
Yeah. So these characters, look, it goes one of two ways. Either these characters will make my dungeon look lovely, or my dungeon will make
the characters look lovely.
But that particular box is going on my shopping list. Yeah. We like the D&D a little bit here. Now, these days, I'm doing my adventuring at 15 mil scale. People are asking, well, why are you building the 28 mil scale dungeon display? Because that is where my 28 mil stuff is going to go. It now resides in the display. Yeah. However, it will still get a run out from time to time because it'll be the most handy display of D&D minis that I could possibly have. And those female minis are perfect to give Anna some additional choices and things like that of real, female characters that I think that they can relate to. They look like they mean business.
Yeah, there's no like boob or bikini armor on show with these guys, which is really cool.
Yeah, and if they decide they want to go down the route of Xena style bikini armors and things like that,
then sure they can do that.
Yeah. That's their choice. But this also gives them some opportunities to look like the other characters that are going down in the dungeon, except for my barbarian, of which I have two. Neither wears very much, I'll be honest. Yeah. But that's my style of barbarian. I am Hero Quest guy from the front of the box. You will see flesh and a small patch of fur. Whether that's a loincloth or not kind of depends on the day of the week.
I'm going to be really boring. My favorite mini is definitely this mule.
Oh, you see, that's the thing. They've done some really good stuff with like henchmen and allies and NPCs and things. A lot of people actually look at the Otherworld range for stuff to use in Frostgrave. So back when Frostgrave came out, and they effectively just had, Northstar just had that range of metal wizards. A lot of people were looking at things like Otherworld in order to pick up additional characters and support characters and that kind of thing. I did the same. I went and picked up, the guy in that box with the little book flicking through. He was my wizened old apprentice that I was using in my group and stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But as well as heroes, they also do monsters. And again, they do all the kind of monsters that you would assume you'd find in your classic D&D sort of dungeon delves and things. So you've got your kobolds, you got your goblins, your orcs, your bugbears, all the kind of sort of standard tropes that you find in dungeons, as well as things like slightly more esoteric monsters and beasties and swarms as well. The sort of catalogue of kind of stuff they have in terms of creatures is insanely deep when it comes to stuff as well. So.
I wonder, is that gelatinous cube one of the big ones that you can actually put down over the top of a mini?
I believe.
Or is it a solid?
One of the ones they've done is maybe this.
That one looks solid because I can't see any.
If you click on the arrows, I think is there like a different.
That's the only picture.
Oh, is that the only one? Oh, I swear they've done one where there's like a dude inside it. Oh man. Yeah. Maybe it's a different company, but
streams on that one.
Yeah. They've done some really cool stuff.
Genie, that's cool coming out of that.
Cool. I was going to say, so they've done stuff that's not necessarily just tied directly into that kind of Western style of RPG as well. They've also got things like djinns and all that kind of stuff, like Arabian Adventures, and a lot of the things that Otherworld do actually tie into certain modules for Dungeons and Dragons Adventures as well, or certain sort of offshoots of D&D, as well as things like Beowulf and that kind of thing too, which is really cool. Again, one of the things you'll notice with a lot of the sculpts is that while they're slightly more modern in look, they're based on the original artworks from like first and second edition Dungeons and Dragons. So a lot of the creatures, like for example the Hook Horror that we were looking at a couple of minutes ago, so that one there, that's how the Hook Horror looked back in sort of like second and third edition Dungeons and Dragons, and so that's what they've used as their inspiration for making the model, which I think is really cool.
So nice modern, clean sculpting.
Yes,
based on the older design.
Yeah. Yeah. The other cool thing.
5 pages of this stuff.
Oh, yeah. The other cool thing to bear in mind with a lot of these as well is that while some of the slightly more sort of gribbly monsters will be multi-part, a lot of them are actually just single cast metals for the most part, especially when it comes to a lot of the heroes and a lot of the monsters. You just basically stick them to the base and they're good to go, which is always good.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Got your good old beholder as well.
Yeah. These are lovely.
Yeah, they really are. We could be looking through the monsters for days and days and days.
Could.
But I'm just going to sort of drag you on.
Mushroom Man!
Mushroom Man!
You tried to derail us before we got to
I should have known that as soon as we found Myconids, you'd be off.
Look at that!
Oh, dear.
Oh, the helmet on that one is amazing! I love it. Oh, yes. Oh.
Would you believe that when I went to a Burrows and Badgers tournament last year, I was looking at one of the gaming tables and someone had made these lovely sort of garden mushroom things as buildings, and they went, make sure you tell Warren that we put all these big mushrooms on the table, because I can't wait to see him laugh about it. And I was like, oh, God.
Oh, mate. Look.
Gonna have to come back here after.
Got your Drow Warriors and Driders and everything.
Oh, man. These are amazing. Right. Show me another category, Ben.
Yeah, so the next category I was going to show you was the non-player characters one. So that should be the one that's up next. Yeah, so this is a slightly more expanded collection of what we saw in that original box set that was sort of featured at the start of this. So this is when you get to dive into all the other types of characters that they've done. And it's where you find a lot of the stuff that you could actually kind of use as heroes if you wanted to try and do something different, or if you wanted to try and use these in something that's not necessarily as high fantasy. So, for example, a lot of these characters would be really good in things like Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay as well. So you could use them as your player characters, because a lot of the time, the people that you play, the heroes that you play in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, are just sort of normal folk that get sort of accidentally dragged into the sort of goings-on of the world. Yeah. So, for example, a rat catcher, one of the most famous classes for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely stunning range of non-player characters for you to look through. And
these are gorgeous.
They really are as well, yeah. And the thing with these as well is that Otherworld don't just like put things out every year or something. They tend to have a release maybe every 1 or 2 months, and there'll be a new fresh batch of monsters, or there'll be a recast of some of their old stuff, or a redo of some of their old stuff to make it more in line with their sort of slightly more modern take on things as well.
Yeah.
It's just a joy to behold and dive through this and see what they've got on offer every month. So,
are you going to take us into the little scenery sets?
We can go to the scenery sets. So,
just want to quickly flash up all these, right?
Yeah,
scenery sets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if we scroll, if it's the last link on the sheet that you want to go and check out, and it's just called Terrain, etc. that I've put it as, but you can go and check that.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got things like dragons and undead and wilderness encounters as well, but let's have a look at the terrain. So the terrain itself, again, very much inspired by the ideas of classic D&D. A lot of people will know that demon idol as being on the cover of one of the Dungeons and Dragons modules, or I believe it was the player's handbook. The player's handbook back in the day. That was it. Yeah.
They were you'll prize the gems out of its eyeballs.
That's the one. The little halfling trying to get the gems out. So you got that to sit into your dungeon, which is fantastic. You've got things like statues and stuff that you can adorn your dungeon with. So you've been talking about in your blog about trying to add character and life to these kind of dungeons. This is the kind of stuff that does it. So even if you've got 2D tiles, adding some of these on to make it 2.5D is the way to go forward and sort of, build on things and make things interactive for your players as well. You've also got Fallen Adventurers. So if you want to have someone to loot, or if you want to have something for one of your dead heroes, then, you've got some good options there too. Got your own, little adventurer's cart full of gold that they've stolen from a dungeon and everything. Maybe you want to go and raid that as it's on its way into town or something as well. It's all very cool.
Nice.
But as you sort of go through this fantasy things, they've got loads of little bits and pieces. So they've got little tiny boggarts and fairies and familiars, statues. Maybe someone's got turned into stone by a Medusa, or sorry, a Gorgon or something. There you go. There's the full little diorama of them prizing the jewels out.
All you're missing is a load of dead lizardmen to be strewn on the bottom of the rest of the party going, hurry up. Get the eyes and let's get out of here.
And again, it's one of the things that I think is really important with when you're looking at D&D ranges and stuff that you want to use for the tabletop is collections of little bits and pieces that you can throw into your collection that will allow you to tell those slightly more interesting stories and build narrative on the tabletop. And I know a lot of people will play in Mind's Eye, a lot of people will play on tiles, etc. However you want to do it, it's always nice to sometimes have those little sort of physical objects that you can draw upon and sort of see, so that's what that looks like or something. So even if you are playing in Mind's Eye, you could be like, well, this is a little treasure that you found, and put that out in front of your players and stuff, which would be really cool. A little bit of classic Conan-esque stuff as well, if that's your bag. But yeah,
that's the rescue.
That is my bag, baby.
It definitely is for Warzone the Barbarian. Yeah. The last one I want to look at category-wise, just before we sort of move off, is if you scroll back. There's actually, two more. Let's go two more. Right.
Okay.
So there's dragons and there's the undead. Okay. So
all right.
You open those.
What about
those links?
The wilderness encounters? Do we need? Oh man, we need to go into this.
Well, now we've got to go through all three of those last ones.
Look at this. You can't miss these.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of the time when you're playing Dungeons & Dragons, you'll be fighting things down in the dungeon. But more often than not, you're going to be running into encounters on the way to the dungeon. Yes. And that's where this entire Wilderness Encounters collection comes from. So this is a lot more of the kind of characters that are slightly more weird and sort of out in the forests and the swamps and stuff that you might run into.
Yeah.
And again, just astounding. A lot of it based on that kind of old D&D art, but given a fresh sculpting eye and all that kind of thing as well. And it's a perfect resource for a lot of people who are doing things like Rangers of Shadow Deep as well. Or maybe you're diving into Lord of the Rings, for example, on the tabletop, and you can't quite find something that matches for sort of like Ents and things. They've got a really cool sort of like tree man and stuff as well. One of my favorite miniatures, looks exactly like Treebeard. Perfect for the tabletop. Yeah. Giant frogs, for if you want to try and make things a little bit different on the table as well. Change out those kind of giant spiders for frogs instead. So as they're trying to run away from them, in the swamps, the frogs are jumping in front and all that kind of thing too. It'd be really different and sort of interesting. Weasels? Who wouldn't want weasels?
You're showing your birds and badgers.
I know, I'm showing it. Yeah.
The giant frogs is interesting because there were actually giant frogs in the past. If you look back,
the other way, yeah.
Was there like
in prehistory? Yeah,
there were actual. They've got the remains and things they found.
And how big How big was a giant frog?
Like a big giant frog, like swallow you type frog.
It would actually eat me.
It would have a seriously strong bite. That's what on the video that I was watching. It's because if you scale a frog up, bam, just a really strong bite.
Cool.
Don't know if it has any teeth, but it could probably have a good chance in swallowing you.
I'll match you.
Oh, you got the owlbears.
Oh, I love an owlbear. Owlbears are amazing.
Right, your next section, Ben.
Okay.
Yes, we've got dragons and we've got the undead.
So let's do the dragons.
Dragons is a smaller set, so we'll have a look at that first. But the dragons, again, are kind of based off the classic look of them from the older manuals and things, and they've done all of the sort of core ones that you would find in the sort of chromatic range. So you've got white, black, green, blue, and red in the mix, and each of them done big models. These ones easily dwarf the 28 mil miniatures in the collections. My favorite is the red dragon, so it's this one here, which for those people who are fans of sort of Larry Elmore art, has been done in a slight little bit of a style of that to try and ape the cover of the red box back in the day. You just need a barbarian with his horned hat and sword in front of him, and then you'd be ready to go. But yeah, my favorite is that red dragon.
It's a very different art style from the one that we were just looking at.
Yes, it's less realistic, more fantastical. Yeah, so with a slightly cartoon edge to it.
Yeah. It's we're kind of spoilt for dragons now. When you see that Coruscant Dragon, it has definitely set a higher bar these days.
It really has. Yeah.
It really has. Right, let's have a look at the undead.
Yeah, so the undead,
important part of all tabletop gaming tropes.
Exactly, because a lot of people will know that, you know, some of those first encounters that you'll play when you dive into D&D are going to be against like skeleton hordes and zombies and stuff. And the range that they do is absolutely stunning. My favorite model is coming up, and hopefully we'll see it in a second, is the Death Knight. It's the last tab. We'll look at that then. But yeah, you've got ghosts, ghouls, banshees, liches, the Penangalang, which is based on sort of Eastern mythology as well, so Japanese mythology. So it's like a head and a spine. So it's the next one there. Yeah. So yeah, which you'll a lot of people will know from sort of Asian stories and artwork and things. Very cool.
Yeah,
that is minging.
Less of that.
I say banshees, fantastic stuff. And this is my favorite model in their entire range, the Death Knight, because I love that sort of rusted ancient armor. That sword, I would love to have that sword in like real life. I'd love to have that on like a wall somewhere. That would be amazing. A lot of people have used him for like the big bads in Rangers Shadow Deep and that kind of thing. A really stunning model that would be a fantastic boss creature. And then you've got your standard range of collection. So you've got your skeletons and your zombies as well. All in really nice poses, done with that kind of like Jason and the Argonauts style feel to them as well. Harryhausen. Yeah, the Harryhausen look. Yeah. But yeah.
These are my favorites here, the more neutral look rather than the whole Batwing. I think I've talked about that before.
Yes.
I prefer Undead to look like regular Joes that have got up from being dead, and they didn't just suddenly sprout Batwings.
What's your problem with Undead blacksmiths getting some work?
Yeah, there's a lot of labour involved in making those Batwing helmets.
These zombies are amazing.
Yeah. A few of them are actually tend to be based on the idea of some of the NPCs that may have died and gone off as well, which is really
nice. Cool. Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea. If you, tying them. So if I buy the NPCs, I'm going to have to buy the zombie versions as well. Oh, amazing. Lloyd, there's a group of minis there called Shadows. There.
Oh, yeah.
Check them out.
So if you want to do some sort of like alternative ring wraiths or something, you could do something with these, or use them obviously as shadows from D&D, which are a terrifying enemy if you ever came up against them. Really horrible creatures.
The whites. Very nice. Oh, right.
One of the cool things I was going to say just before we move off from this is that if you ever see Otherworld at events like Salute, they tend to do a really awesome sort of display on their stand. So they'll have all the miniatures, and then they'll have like a little diorama that sits at the top, and it'll have all the painted miniatures in it. Because they actually do like a skirmish, like underground dungeon delving skirmish game as well. So you can go and check that out as well. But they use a lot of their range in order to build it. These are some of the licensed miniatures I was talking about as well. So there's a guy who did a new Beowulf game book last year. I believe we talked about it on the Weekender as well. And so Otherworld were like, we'll build the miniatures for you. So there's a Beowulf and a Grendel for you to just have and paint up in your collection too. So something a little bit different as well.
Love it. It's enormous, isn't it? Just what they cover. So
yeah, you could get lost for hours and hours looking through this catalog.
Right,
it's pretty insane.
There you have it, guys. That's our indie of the week. Go and check out otherworldminiatures.co.uk. Right, we'll be right back with Ben's news. Coming to you from the center of Northwestern Europe. Covering board games, war games, card games, and all that you love. It's the news.
So yeah, we talked about it a little bit earlier in the show. Obviously, the prize we're giving away this week is going to be 2 Blood Bowl teams of my choice in the selection. You will get only the finest of them.
And just to remind people, in case they weren't listening, they have to comment below as to which color scheme they want Jerry to do the dragon in.
Yes.
That's how they win.
Yeah.
You should also like and subscribe and all that goodness.
You should, yes. And then you can find out more interesting news on our website. A little bit like the new edition of Blood Bowl that is coming soon. So Games Workshop, a whole bunch of leaks first came out a couple of weeks ago, and then Games Workshop, in their typical fashion, were like, hold on a second, you don't want to see things through the potato lens, let's have a look at things properly. So we're going to be seeing a new starter set coming to the fore, which features 2 resculpted teams. You've got the Imperial humans versus the Black Orcs on the tabletop.
Where are we? Is this now?
Yeah, so these are the Imperial nobility, the Imperial humans. This is the Bogenhofen barons, who are very resplendent in all their feathers and armor. You've got a really, really awesome little mix of different characters in the team there. Obviously, you've got a couple of dupes, as you tend to do with the Blood Bowl stuff nowadays. But there's enough character and difference in there, I think, in terms of what you could paint in the different styles in order to make them look individual, which is really cool. As well as that, for the Imperial nobility, there's also a star player has made his way onto the pitch, and that is Griff Oberwald, which is neither of those two.
Oh.
But if you go back to the first image, the guy at the front with the eagle sitting atop his hand is Griff Oberwald himself, one of the most famous players in the Blood Bowl universe. Has been signed up to the Bogenhofen Barons to play for them, which is pretty cool. But yeah. The new version of the game is apparently going to be slicker, a little bit more sort of like refined. They've gone back and they've taken a lot of the sort of funny elements of Blood Bowl and tried to re-inject that back into the game, which is really cool. And importantly, for all those people that didn't want to buy billions of different books and magazines and all that kind of thing, everything you need to play and all the teams that are out currently, plus a couple of new ones, are going to be inside that main book. So all your teams are going to be there, everything's setting up leagues and everything like that. Which is
Jerry, they listen to you, mate.
So,
what's it say on the side of the box? Second
season edition. Yeah, because it's following on from the 2016 one, I guess.
Right. Because I know they've added a stat.
They have added a stat. There's a passing stat now, I believe. I think,
so what's actually in this box? Is this team?
So in the box, you get the Imperial humans. You get the new Black Orcs, which we'll look at in a second. I think they're called the Thunder Valley Greenskins. Okay. You get the rulebook. You then get all of the measuring equipment and all the things you need, so all the accessories and the templates and the dice. And then, of course, a couple of bits and pieces for making it with teams. And your dugouts and that kind of thing, too.
You
get the Black Orcs and the Bogenhofen Barons.
We're going to look at those in a sec. Are these additions, then, that you're going to add on, or do they come in the box?
So the Bogenhofen Barons are the human team that is going to be in the box, because now the Black Orcs and the Bogenhofen Barons, the Imperial Nobility, are two new teams that have already been added into the mix.
All right, so this is just close-ups of what we can see here.
So you've got humans, and then you've got the Imperial Nobility, and then you've got Orcs, and you've also got like goblins and snotlings, and then you've got the Black Orc elite team as well that they've done as well, which we'll see in a second. So these are the new Black Orc team that have been put together. The whole sort of focus around these guys is that the sort of fluff behind it is that Orcs, the Black Orcs on Blood Bowl teams, are sick of all the other Orcs just palling around and punching each other and not really wanting to score. These guys are really hardcore, we want to win. And so they have teamed up to make their own team called the Thunder Valley Greenskins. And they've brought in some very sneaky goblins as well in order to fight alongside them on the Blood Bowl pitch. They've also got their star player, which is Varag Gulchur, who is another big favourite from the past of Blood Bowl 2. Who's been resculpted with a ghoul on his arm, as you would. But yeah, very cool stuff there as well. And this is going to be the other team that's in that core box. So if you want two really elite teams to play on the tabletop, you've got them. The other team that you can see there is the Snotling team. So if you don't want to win any games, then you can play as the Snotlings. Obviously, they get themselves a little pump wagon, which is really cool. A lot of people will know that from Warhammer Fantasy Battles as well. But yeah, so this is your slightly more comic team to use on the tabletop. A little bit worse than Halflings, if that could even be such a thing. But it's for the veterans and the elite of the Blood Bowl game to play these different characters. But that then leads us into the final little bit of news they shared. So it's on the next tab that was included on the running order. That one there. So as well as the new humans and the new orcs, they also did a revamp of the necromantic horrors team as well. So this is their new version that's going to be in a plastic box set that will come out. They've revamped all the zombies and the ghouls and the werewolves and the flesh golems as well, which is really neat. I think werewolves are really hard to do in miniatures, I found. Because it tends to be that the proportions are always a little bit off, or they just look a bit weird. And so it was really actually quite nice seeing these, because I think they've done quite a good job on these ones. I think they look pretty good in terms of sort of Games Workshop-y werewolves. Very cool.
Werewolves tend to look goofy.
They do look a bit goofy, yes. That's very
in miniature form.
Yeah. But one of the cool things about this as well is it kind of goes down that zany, almost quirky route again that we've been seeing them look at with this. So you've got all the things to like, with Halloween, with the pumpkin heads and all that kind of stuff going on. You've got the the whites, which are just sheets. It's like, it's just a fun little thing that they've put into the game. And it could be a player. It could just be someone with a stick running around. Who knows? But it's very, very cool.
Who the star player is for the Undead yet?
No, I don't believe there is a star player in this one because I think it's going to be just a normal team box.
That's
whereas the other two, because they're in the core set, they've added the 2-star players.
But the Undead had like 3 or 4 of the best
had
star
loads,
players in the game. Yeah, Lon Chaney Jr. We haven't seen him since probably first edition.
I'm all up for fun in Blood Bowl and the funny teams, but man, do I struggle with the idea of like an undead necromantic horror team. I'm giving a shit about winning.
I will say that Blood Bowl does absolutely nothing for me. Okay,
oh, man.
Here's Nuffle.
It's purely look.
I like this. I like the likes of the Snotlings and stuff. I like the fun factor.
Not enough trolls in that team.
None of it does anything for me whatsoever. And the reason is probably my own kind of an OCD kind of a thing. When I think of the fantasy settings, right? I think maybe I'm thinking too simplistic in this, but I'm thinking in terms of danger and risk and evil and enemies and things like that there, and then to suddenly have undead don stripy football tops and compete against me in a sports match.
But that's because
it takes me to Bedknobs and Broomsticks, man.
It's an alternative universe to the Warhammer one, because in the Blood Bowl universe, they decided to stop settling their differences by war and instead play Blood Bowl on the football pitch instead.
They found an ancient manuscript all about the god Nuffle and how to placate him.
Exactly, yeah.
Really?
Nuffle to this day is the god of luck for me. So yeah.
Still does nothing for me, boys. But yeah, horses for courses. It looks funny.
I mean, that's one of the cool things I like about this. That it's the fun factor of Blood Bowl and bringing that back into the mix. I think is going to be really good.
For me, Blood Bowl's got to be fun because maybe I'm being boring, but the idea of playing essentially a football game in miniature just sounds a bit. I've just never really dug it, but I can understand if you put a whole fun factor into it.
Yeah,
it's when you try to take it too seriously. I'm like,
it's interesting actually, because a bit later in the show we're probably going to revisit that very topic, Lloyd. Right, what's next, Ben? Let's move on quickly.
So next up, we're stepping into the world of Saga, which I'm sure will be very good for both Jerry and Lloyd. And so this is the announcement that Studio Tomahawk have put together. Saga Age of Hannibal has been announced. So this
Don't you love it when a plan comes together?
So this is going to be their new Ancients book, which takes you back to the period of the clash between obviously Hannibal and Carthage and Rome.
Talk among yourselves. I'm in the wrong t-shirt.
So thankfully he's left up a good infographic for us to look at here. So there's going to be 6 new factions in the game, which we'll look at in a little bit more detail later. Screen grab from the video. But you've got the Carthaginians, the Republic of Rome.
I'm back.
Gaul, Iberians, Numidians, and the Graculi, who I have been reliably informed translates into little Greeks. So there we go.
I thought all Greeks were little.
Yes, and they all run tavernas as well. But yeah, so this is a new set. So you're going to get 6 new battle boards for each of the different factions. There's going to be new rules and stuff thrown into the mix as well, which is really cool for ruses, which is neat.
Fans of Archer out there.
Yeah.
It's called. They want the word back.
I think I literally have these guys sitting in a pile over there waiting to be
probably
built.
do.
You do literally have the Carthaginians sitting behind you. There's a
and also included within this book is going to be the new rules for playing Saga Epic. So a lot of people who know about
What is Saga Epic?
So Saga Epic is the tuned up version of Saga to play with larger armies. And so a lot of people will play Saga with, smaller war bands, I guess you'd say.
6 to 8 points.
Something like that, yeah.
You're rocking 50-ish miniatures, maybe.
And this is going to rank things up to the next level. So.
It looked, because I did stop the video and do rough counts on both sides, and it looks like you've got multiple warlords and possibly something like 24 points on a table.
You've got
Wow.
war machines and elephants and that kind of thing in there as well now. So
Yeah, which is
24 points. That's like
Edius
10
and
times the size of a.
Yep.
Oh no, a 6-point army is
Yeah,
kind of your starting point in Saga, isn't it?
yeah. So, but it's massive. So it'll be interesting to see when more information comes through what they've done and how they've done it. Because if it's a simple set of you do this to modify your gameplay, because obviously you're always restricted by the amount of dice you have for activations and that sort of thing. That could then be ported across, and will be, straight into Dark Ages and into Crusades as well.
Yeah.
So I just need the rules. Give me the rules. Where are the rules, Studio Tomahawk?
The rules are.
Oh, you
You're not
might
gonna
get
answer me in English.
you might get rule books and you might get battle boards, but good luck getting dice. Dice is always the pain in the hole.
Okay,
Fine.
so
thankfully, one of the cool things about this in terms of actual buying miniatures and stuff is that obviously there's a lot of rangers out there that already do all of these historical miniatures. So if you want to find Carthaginians or Republic of Rome, Gaul, etc., we already have lots of people that do that. So you now can just port over your armies from different games, play both of them, play 3 of them, play 4 of them, play all these different games and just get different perspectives on the same kind of period of history by different
gives me an
designers.
opportunity, Jerry, to I'm pretty sure that gift package that I got of the 15 mil minis will be suitable for this. So I'll have to dig them out and see if I can get them start to work up a basing scheme for them to put it together for this. That could be really cool. Mm-hmm.
Do you think Epic Saga is just going to be trimmed down rules to make it go faster, or are they going to do like multi-basing type stuff?
No.
Trays or anything?
The picture they've shown is a table that looks like 3 armies combined on each side. So I assume it's adjustments for list building and how you play.
Yeah, probably.
If they bring in some of the things from Age of Magic, the likes of some of the hero, what they call them, like lieutenant type of things dropping in, is potentially a way to do it where you've got smaller commanders who can operate essentially chunks of your army for you. So you've got your overall warlord, and then you've got your dice that you manipulate, and then also you've got like sub-lieutenants that can order bits of your force forward and around without having to worry about dice then. So
yeah, that'd be cool.
But we'll see. All conjecture at the moment.
It could be just what we need for our Battle of Gluntarf.
Gluntarf, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The long-awaited battle.
Well, we've had it a few
couple of
times. We've never got around to
All
building
right,
any
okay.
decent
The long-awaited,
scenery.
put it on camera, please. Battle.
Oh, it's never going on camera because it's one of those hectic multiplayer games.
Oh, yeah.
Next up, Ben Hellboy.
Yeah. So Mantic and Red Scar have joined forces once again to bring a new Kickstarter coming very, very soon for Hellboy, the role-playing game, where you will play as BPRD agents who are going out to solve all sorts of interesting mysteries around the world when Hellboy is a little bit too busy. You'll be able to make characters that are, your regular Joes, your regular humans, that are sort of like your standard agents that you may have seen from the films and stuff. Or you can also make characters that have a little bit of a tune towards the fantastical and the magical. Maybe they have some powers that have awakened within them, and so they've been brought on by BPRD in order to fight alongside them to stop the forces of evil from taking over the world. The role-playing system is going to use the 5th edition rules as a basis for it, although they have tagged on a load of additional options here and there to make it work mechanically within the sort of setting of Hellboy. We actually got to have a little bit of a play with it and play to a session of the game, which will be out in a Let's Play next week. So watch out for that to find out a little bit more about how it plays.
It's fun.
It is very fun. But if you want to get in on it yourself when the Kickstarter launches, there will be a free quick start guide for you to download and play around with yourself.
Oh, is that not out yet? You have to wait for the Kickstarter.
You've got to wait for the Kickstarter to go live, and then you can go and download the quick start and have a go with it, and then see whether or not you like it before you back, which is always a plus.
Kickstarter's next Thursday, so
yes.
You get in and get the quick start guide then. Red Scar are going to be running sessions of Hellboy at the Virtually Expo next week as well, so you can actually play it for the first time, essentially, through, I think they're using Discord.
Yeah.
And it is really fun. We had a lot of fun with it. Lots of cool ideas for like. One of the things that I really liked about it was the cooperative element that they put into the game. So the way that you can sort of give benefits to each other around the table was really, really fun. And it actually felt like you were playing as a BPRD team, which I think is a really core element of this, especially using the sort of standard 5th edition rules as a basis as well. So yeah, good fun. Watch out for that.
Right, next up, Firelock Games. They've been outlining their plans for Raise the Black.
Yes, so Raise the Black, the next step in the Firelock Games saga that is Blood and Plunder, is going to be coming to Kickstarter on October the 6th, so mark that in your calendar. And the main premise around what they're doing with the Kickstarter is they're funding a new 2-player starter set. And the new 2-player starter set is going to come with plastic multi-part miniatures and a plastic boat. You're going to get 2 factions for you to play it. One of them is going to be Blackbeard themed, and the other side is going to be the Royal Navy. So a classic clash.
Do we have any pictures of any of this stuff?
Yeah, if you scroll down, you'll see some of the renders they've done for some of the characters, and then also some of the plastic miniatures as well further down too. There's going to be obviously the rulebook in there and all the things you need in order to get started within Blood and Plunder. This is all sort of in a push for them moving into the next sort of timeline step for Blood and Plunder as well. Yeah. Because with Raise the Black and Queen Anne's War, which we saw as the book at the start of that news story, but don't need to worry about that too much. They're moving into the 18th century rather than just the 17th century. So there's going to be a little bit of a step forward there. So they're going to be introducing a whole range of new characters, new armaments, new ways of fighting, new boats, basically everything you could want from that period. That doesn't mean that they're leaving the 17th century behind. They're still going to be catering to that. And they've also said that the plastic kits that they're going to be coming out with will also have options on them and ways for you to use them in the 17th century if you're a real stickler for the historical rules, which of course a lot of people who play Blood and Plunder are, because they love that kind of more historical edge to the game rather than it being that romanticized look at the pirates of this age as well, which is really cool. But yeah, loads of new scenarios, loads of interesting new ideas for campaigns for you to play, plastic miniatures, Blackbeard, who would want to play around with Blackbeard, the Royal Navy, plastic kits, everything you can need to get stuck in. There's still going to be lots of the metal stuff as well, which is cool.
Is this the plastic kit example? Or
yeah, so those are some of the plastic kits that were painted up by one of their community members and a professional painter. So yeah, that's a sort of look at what you're going to be getting on the one side of things. And yeah, as you can see, they're very modular, so you've got ways to, fiddle around with the arms and the way that they're posed and that kind of thing too, which is really cool. And it's nice to see them doing this as sort of like an entry point for people that really like customizing their forces. Because one of the big things about, obviously pirates of this period is that they would have, looked, various different ways.
Yeah.
It's not all going to look very standard, are they? So having a nice way to differentiate your crew from your friend's crew is always important. So
awesome stuff. Right. Next up, Steamforged have announced the end of Guild Ball.
Yes,
or not, anyway.
Yeah. So,
and a very interesting statement, actually, because the founders, I remember Guild Ball at the very, very start.
We played it on a really tiny, weird demo pitch in the studio back when it was in your garden, I think it was.
It was here in Studio One in the shed. We'd set up a pitch and we played the demo game, recorded a Let's Play to show people this new tabletop football with axes game. And it was one of those ones that it wasn't particularly easy to understand what you were looking at until you played it. And then when you played it, you went, oh, wow, this is something different. This is something super good. But it seems it took an interesting path, at least according to the founders, where I think they felt that it ran its course primarily because it started to settle itself into the tournament scene. Now, we can only take their word for it, but I can't really think who's much better placed than the founders of it to say what transpired. But it looks to me that because the game found its home in the tournament scene, it maybe became a bit dry. It maybe became a bit dry.
So they have a statement on their website about it.
They do, yeah. So it's going to be coming to a close at the sort of start of September, where they'll no longer be producing anything for Guild Ball. It will go the way of the dodo, as it were. But as we know, a lot of these kind of games will often pick up an underground following, and they'll continue to be played by a lot of people. as Warren was saying, it was very, very well loved on the tournament circuit. A lot of people were playing it and enjoying it. But from what they were saying, at least in their statement, it was not the game they had first envisioned. It's a quote from their article. But
so what? It went a bit too super serious and lost the fun factor.
Apparently, it moved away from. Apparently, it moved away from being quick and dynamic to being very conservative, and it wasn't quite how they'd seen it being as sort of like a bombastic fantasy sports game.
And they couldn't produce anything new for it because even before the miniatures were released, people would look at the stats and go, "I'm not buying that. Why would I buy that? It does the same job of that miniature I already do, except that miniature does it better at lower cost."
It's one of the things that's come out of this.
Swathes of it.
It's one of the things that's come out in a lot of the discussion about this is that it's the same thing that I guess would happen to a lot of games eventually, is that you run into a design space that's effectively painting yourself into a corner. And once you've got in that corner, it's very hard to design your way out of that without doing a new edition or something like that. So.
Games survive financially on collectors, okay? Because you need people to collect. That is first and foremost. The entire industry only survives because of people with the collection gene. If your game suddenly finds itself that all of its support is primarily there for competitive play, for the tournament scene, the min-max takes over. Do you know what I mean? It's a very, not only is it a very conservative group in terms of how they play, but a portion of it, and certainly a sizable portion of it, are conservative in terms of what they buy because they're focused on the win rather than necessarily the collection, the hobby and stuff. And then whenever you're trying to ensure that they continue to buy, then your developers start to focus on the win. And one of the most telling comments for me was the game had turned into a game where, as a new player, you'd win your first game, your demo game, and then you'd lose the next 100 games because the depth and the tactical balance, everything was so finely balanced that it all came down completely to skill. And that's okay to a point, but the difficulty is for a game to continue to survive outside of those who are
the current player base.
People need to be able to win, and one way to do that is your big, your random, your strange, your funny, your over the top events that can turn a game around. So it's sad, but I can understand it from a couple of perspectives. I can understand it from the players' perspectives because there will be people out there who will be devastated over this. You know, this will be a game that they love, and they may well be collectors. There's just not enough of them. They'll be looking at Steamforged and saying, "Come on, you're better than this. You should be able to create your way out of this this problem."
But those people should be told to jog on.
Yeah.
Well, if they're already playing and they're already collecting, then chances are they've got the stuff they can continue to play. But if the game has reached the point, and they said it would reach a finite point anyway, it's just with everything that's happened, this has come a bit earlier, so they went, well, we'll just knock on the head now.
Yeah.
But the alternative is not skill creep, is game creep, which is whatever they produce must be so overpowered for people to buy it, and then all of a sudden you render whole swathes of people's teams obsolete. Because they'll all move to the new one, and that will just continue and continue and continue. There's, with any game with a limited amount of teams, you will always hit a level where you can't go any further, and the teams will end up in there. At least there is balance in what they have. So if people want to continue to play it, you've got your stuff, go nuts. But unless you radically overhaul the entire game every 4 years, at which point that's going to upset a lot of people. That was very good there, I didn't swear. Because every 4 years, they're just being told everything you've learned and everything you've bought out the window. Have a new stat.
Yeah. Well, here's Jerry, that is the other way to look at it. Maybe all games should be looked at from the perspective of they have a lifetime, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And maybe other companies should have more confidence to bring an IP to an end and just say, look, it's had its run, it's done its thing. We're going to send it out with a blast.
I think
and then
certainly
we'll
for fantasy games or sci-fi games where you've got an IP and a range behind it, they suffer from this much more than historic games because a lot of companies won't have ranges. They just make the rule set. And
like eventually Star Wars Legion is going to come to an end. They're going to stop making it. So
so it's more prevalent in science fiction and fantasy based settings where you're trying to promote a range to go with it. And then when you bring in something like a sports game where you've got a finite amount of teams essentially that you can put in there, you will hit a point where you just can't go anywhere with them because you need the game to be simple enough that it can be well, most of them are written as beer and pretzel games. So giving somebody 15 stats all off D20s is going to be a non-starter. You need to make things relatively simple. And so you'll hit a point where you just can't go anywhere unless you plan on just going up and up and up. So
yeah.
The thing that I was going to say, I think will no doubt happen is that obviously there is still a vibrant community of people who play Guild Ball, and they're no doubt going to take the rules as they are now and they will tweak them and they will change them and they'll still play tournaments. There just won't be anything new added in. But if they have ways that they can find their way out of certain situations and
the way Blood Bowl
did. Exactly, yeah. Like Blood Bowl went disappeared and then everyone made their own fan-made rulebook that then supported Fumble for years and years and years. So
yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how Blood Bowl gets on now that it's sort of really officially back, because you're talking about have the confidence to park a game. Well, GW certainly parked that game.
They parked a lot of game and they brought them all back.
So my Inquisitor is holding its hand up going, please, don't forget me. So
in half a dozen years or so from now, maybe more, who knows, maybe even Guild Ball will make a return.
Well, who knows, yeah.
At least it hasn't been a server switch. Gone. Can't play that anymore. You can play your minis anytime you want.
Exactly.
That's true. That's true. Right. That wraps up the news. Moving on to the Kickstarters. Mm-hmm. Ben, what have you picked this week?
Cool. Yeah. So the first Kickstarter we're going to be looking at is from Treadhead Rad. And this is just something a little bit quirky and weird. So everyone wants to make their own agnostic sci-fi army. How about if you made a sci-fi army that was made out entirely of dinosaurs? And more specifically, raptors with ray guns.
Gotta see this.
Well, exactly. This is just what this Kickstarter is all about. You can download a whole bunch of 3D printable files for you to print off at home that allow you to make not only troopers and sort of fire support and commanders, but also things like additional rangers and elite raptors, feral raptors, who are basically just dinosaurs, stormtrooper raptors, storm command raptors, and loads of other bits and pieces as well. They've even thrown in things like walkers and stuff that you can download to fight alongside them, which is really cool. But the whole premise about this is that you could make the most unique and interesting looking sci-fi army I think pretty much anybody would have seen on the tabletop. Because say you turned up to play some
40k army.
I'd love to see if people could do that. It'd be great. It'd be fantastic. It'd be a really awesome sort of alternative.
Sci-fi, but having seen the historical document about Vikings, that is Kung Fury. That would explain the laser raptors.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, you could bring the laser raptors back. Yeah.
This is amazing. You know, there's bound to have been a kind of like a lizardy, raptory kind of system within the 40k universe.
Yeah, Tyranids.
You know? Yeah, well,
the first Tyranids were just raptors carrying bolt guns.
Mm-hmm. Well, there you go. But I'd probably take them in maybe into a Tau list, or
you do something like that. Yeah.
Run them as orcs.
Yeah. Oh yeah, orcs. Yeah.
Yeah, that would work well. That would work.
You've got the feral ones as well, so they'd be your regular nutter butter ones.
The cool thing about this campaign as well is that
they look so happy.
They do look happy. They look happy and glorious that they're destroying things with their lasers and ray guns. It's really cool.
If you were a raptor, okay, and you and your buddies were lying around near the water hole, the way raptors do, okay, you're chillaxing, okay. And then suddenly there's a bright flash of light, and you think to yourself, "Oh crap, that's it. That's the end of the world. The humans are coming next." But it turns out that bright flash of light is actually an alien spacecraft landing, and they've said, sorry, dudes, we bumped into a meteor on the way here. I don't think it's going to bother you anymore. But here, have these sexy raptor helmets and this awesome raptor plasma kit, okay? Go have some fun.
Exactly.
You would be the happiest raptors on planet Earth, man. So sporting them raptor grins, absolutely.
You'd be herding your way right towards it.
A cool thing about this Kickstarter campaign as well, obviously a lot of the ones that do 3D printable stuff, you tend to just see the renders of things. These are one of the companies that have put out actual physical final products of what they've done as well. So you can see how they look, and I think they look really cool. So
fantastic.
Where are they?
If you scroll down past all the renders, you'll see some of the printed
yes, because we were looking at the pictures down here.
There we go. So that's some of the actual miniatures that they've printed off.
I wish we could get bigger pictures off flipping Kickstarter.
That would be sensible, though, wouldn't it?
There.
So
the interesting thing is, remember, you can scale these bad boys up.
You can, yeah.
Print bed. I want to try these. I want to print of these guys out. It'd be just.
This is going to be the plot of the next Jurassic Park movie.
It couldn't be any more absurd than the last couple of Jurassic Park movies. Yeah.
Imperial
Right,
so that's the Ray Gun Raptors. 20 days left by Treadhead Rad. Definitely go and check that one out, guys. I think I'm up for that one. Right, what's next, Ben?
So next up, we're going to step to the astronomically insane world of Dwarven Forge, who have hit up Kickstarter once again with their exceptionally well-funded campaign for Wildlands.
They've pretty much nuked Kickstarter with this.
They have, yes. So this is a new set of handcrafted, and that should be pointed out, handcrafted Dwarvenite, which is their material. Yeah, it's an insane amount of money being raised for this, for you to use when planning your dungeon delves with a little bit of a twist. Because just like we were looking at wilderness encounters from Otherworld earlier in the show, this allows you to create wilderness locations for you to play your Dungeons and Dragons games or whatever you might be playing on the tabletop. So they've done new sets that feature forests, mountain slopes, and sort of scree, as well as swamplands as well. And all of these different sets go together in modular ways, allowing you to build them in a myriad of different sort of combinations on the tabletop. You can either pledge for these, either unpainted or painted, depending on how much cash you have lying around. But you can also pledge for some slightly cheaper bundles, which allow you to get a selection of like scatter terrain and stuff, some of which you're seeing here, like the trees and things in the video, which allow you to use them on battle mats and things, or maybe even use them in your skirmish games as well on the tabletop too. For anyone who has even heard of Dungeons and Dragons only fleetingly, they will probably have seen somebody talking about Dwarven Forge terrain and how it's the kind of aspirational level of terrain for you to put down on the tabletop and use in your games. A lot of people really love this stuff, as you might have imagined from the backing that's already got already. It's really, really cool, really characterful, lots of little tiny narrative elements put into the mix as well. Very modular, as you can see in this video too, so you can play around with it and do whatever you want. All locks together and everything as well, which is really neat. A fantastic little set if you desperately want to add to your D&D terrain collection to use on the tabletop.
Yeah, it's stunning stuff. Absolutely stunning stuff. Right, that is Wildlands from Dwarven Forge. How long has that got left to run?
Got about 19 days left on the campaign for that one.
About 19 days. So you still have time, guys, to get in on that one. Right. Do you want to do one more?
Yeah, we'll do one more. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So the last one is a little bit different, as it's a board game, not a miniatures game. And this is Sniper Elite, the board game by Rebellion Unplugged. Rebellion being the company that also made the video games for this as well. So this is a board game for 1 to 4 players based on the successful Sniper Elite series of video games, which I've played quite a few of and very much enjoy. Pardon me. One player, however, will take on the role of Sniper Carl Fairburn, or also a myriad of other snipers that have been unlocked through the campaign. And then the other players will play as the German enemies. So it's a little bit of a tweak and a twist, a flip, as you will, on the one versus many mechanic, where the one person is the good guy and everyone else is the bad guys.
Right.
The person who's playing the sniper will have a specific target or objective to take on during their game, and then everyone else will be trying to stop them along the way. And in true Sniper Elite fashion, it's going to involve stealth and hidden movement, which is a really important aspect of the game, and also being able to cause noise and take out your targets from hidden locations while the Germans are trying to search for you throughout the.
And you get to shoot Hitler in the bollocks.
You do as well. So for anyone who knows. For anyone who knows the Sniper Elite video games, they have the X-ray mechanic in it, where when you shoot somebody, it shows you a lovely graphic slow-mo shot of exactly where you hit them and what blew up inside their body. One of the ways you can do that is with a testicle kill, and that's what this miniature is for. It's also because there is a level within one of the Sniper Elite games where you have to go and hunt down Hitler, and you get a special achievement for shooting him in the balls, because who wouldn't want to do that?
Yeah, no, that particular task is twice as hard as normal, because remember,
exactly. He's only got one.
He had one ball, so
yeah. So as well as the core game, they've also done some expansion stuff as well. So you've got the Eagle's Nest expansion, which includes 4 new snipers bought in from the rest of their game products that they've done, including this something more strange and weird sort of zombie horror elements too. And there's also like a deluxe version of the game which comes with some upgraded components as well. There are some videos and stuff you can watch on the gameplay of Sniper Elite, the board game, over on the Kickstarter. Go and give it a look, see what you think. If you got the idea of a one versus many style board game, then this is well worth checking out, I think.
This is what I'm after. They always embed their best pictures inside their vids.
But yeah, they've really sort of taken the nuance of the video game and tried to distill it down into a board game. And from all accounts, from people who have played it and checked it out on YouTube and stuff, it actually seems pretty cool. So fantastic. Good for both the sniper player and the people playing the Germans hunting him down as well.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you for that, Ben. How many days left on Sniper Elite?
So there's 18 days left on that. We'll just leave the testicle Hitler just on the screen there.
Right. Thank you for that. Look, guys, thank you very much for joining us again for another weekend looking at the fabulous world of our tabletop gaming. Remember, you can join us for XLBS over at OnTableTop.com tomorrow. Go and join the Cult of Games. Take that 30-day free trial. Come and join us. Watch a few of the episodes of XLBS. You also get to watch Jerry showing you the most amazing little secret tutorials and secret tips on how to do amazing things, because he is amazing. Right.
Yeah. Remember to get your comments in before you cut us off for the armies. When are you going to pick those armies, Ben? You're going to just tease us with the mystery armies.
I'll look at all the suggestions that have been given, and when Jerry has decided on what colour he's actually going to do the dragon, I'll pick the winners in the 2 teams that we're going to get as well.
Sweet.
There we go.
You may be able to sway me in the comments by telling me what teams are your favourite. Who knows? So
right. We're done. Guys, have a lovely weekend and have a great week of gaming. Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.